let's get started. Given there's only a few of us here today, I guess a call for opens to see what people have on their mind.
I think the biggest news this week, it's not necessarily specific to tools and CI, is the fact that we're trying to make sure we evaluate the backlog of reviews and merges for the stable tag. And so, as you saw from Mickey's note, we're considering, if needed, even a delay to the release date in order to work through that backlog. So if anybody's aware of work items that they believe are completely reviewed and are just being merged by somebody, or the review was sent out well ahead of the soft freeze, please get that list to Mickey, and we'll do a fair evaluation of all that and figure out a plan for the stable tag and adjust as needed. So mainly it's just for those that are attending here to hear that same message again.
Sounds good. Was there anything from the stewards meeting, or did you have the stewards meeting?
We did, and unfortunately did not see the follow-up for the AR that was due today. A couple things on the ARM platforms. Leif has volunteered to help collect the status of all the ARM platforms and what their status is as far as are they going to be fully maintained going forward, or are they no longer being maintained? And for those that are maintained, who is the platform owner for each of them? So he's going to help get that list together. He was going to try to get an initial assessment done by today, and within the next 2 weeks, he'll have the complete assessment done.
Okay, that sounds great.
And on the GCC compilers, especially for the ARM maintenance of those, he was going to see if he couldn't reach out to somebody at ARM Ltd to step up and be the official designee for those.
Okay.
So some progress.
Right. Was there any discussion around EDK2 platforms and how dependencies should be handled and all of that?
No, did not dive into that next level of detail on there. It was mainly about let's make sure we get the owners identified, and I think that's a discussion to have with the actual owners.
Okay. All right. Anyone have anything else?
There was one other, and I think if it didn't get merged in yet, was that security report against pefile in pytools that was resolved and merged. Is that correct?
I saw the bug opened on the pefile project, and I saw them respond saying they'll try to get to it today, which was like a week ago.
Okay.
I haven't followed anything up since then, but I think there have been a couple pytool releases, so I think it may have been fixed. I don't know. Okay. Michael, do you know?
I don't see it in the changes I'm looking at in the recent releases, so I'm assuming it's not fixed quite yet.
Okay. And the one reason I ask is we obviously want to see that propagated to pytools and then on through the dependapod on into the EDK2 project, right, Michael?
Yes.
And it will require an update to the pytools release version, right, for it to have a higher pip requirements for pefile.
Yeah, I think that's the way we're bringing that in, and there's been quite a few updates recently in the pytools. I think Joey sent a patch like a week last week or something. I don't know if that got in or not. But we should probably try to get one of those updates in to the stable tag, because the integration test and pytool extensions are broke until that happens.
Okay. Can you or Joey reach out to I don't see Lemine here today. Lemine with letting them know there's a critical update, 'cause I think we were officially start the hard freeze today.
Okay.
But due to those other extenuating circumstances, we may be delaying even the hard freeze. So we'll collect all that data together. Just give him if you think there's something critical that needs to go in for the stable tag from the tool side, let's make sure Lemming's aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, this was the I'll put the Dependabot PR in the chat, and then he peeled a patch off that he sent to the list. I don't know if 21.8's the final version we'll go with, but I get the main point is that pytool extensions gets the latest EDK2 master and tests changes against it on every PR, and there's a change needed in EDK2 to bring this in for that there. I think the changes were related to the looking up like the VS tools or something on the system. There's like an API change in there.
Okay.
And Michael, I assume the idea is that that'll be needed before we can take an update that has the PE file update.
Yeah, I mean, probably. We've been, I think he's been bypassing the integration test or something to take changes in the pytool extensions for the time being. I'm not really sure exactly what he's done there, but.
Right, but if we want to update the state for the stable tag, the PE file dependency, it'll need to get the latest version of pytools.
Yes, yeah, I guess that's the point, is we'll need an update if we want to pull that in, and I think we should try to pull that in.
All right, any other open topics for the day?
I guess kind of tying back into what Mike was mentioning with tracking what's going into the release here. We were talking about projects and milestones and stuff like that. I think that's something maybe worth bringing to the wider audience.
Yeah, so Mike, there's a couple things going on the list around the memory protections, the read, write, execute stuff. I think ARD's doing a bunch of work on ARM64, and it's really hard to track. Well, I have trouble tracking on the list, and I feel like most people do as well. We're on patch, I think set V6 at least. It's grown from like 3 patches to 13 patches. And I guess we're trying to figure out how to do collaboration better. And we wondered if we could try to open up some issues in GitHub and then use a project to track the various issues that are associated with that feature. I think OpenSSL 3.0 might be another good initiative that you could do something like that with. And then the other one that I think I've seen on the list that we were concerned about was a number of changes around standalone MM and the efforts to load it early in PEI and change some of the relocation process.
Yeah, I remember
Those are
we discussed in here the idea of, was it either setting up like a Tiano core wide issues database to track some of the bigger work items, where we'd have an empty repo with a way to enter issues. I think we discussed that concept, right?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about if we could open up a new repo for this meeting and to track things that come out of this meeting, because it's hard to, keep them all intact and make sure they're getting done. And since there's not really a code asset associated with this meeting, there wasn't an obvious place to do that.
Okay.
I think this is a little different, but I probably under the same idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, because sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not things will cross repos or not. Some of our platform work that we're talking about, and then that I agree. There's a number of things like the OpenSSL alternatives is being done in a staging branch. I think it's the initial sandbox that JWin has set up to work on options there and try things out. And then we've got some of these other things in the EDK2. Then we've got these things from tools and CI that many of them cross multiple repositories as far as where the work would be done between the different tools repos and the EDK2 repo itself. So I mean, if we scatter the issues around, I think that's not as good as putting them in one place, right?
Well, I think the GitHub project can be that one place, because you can do projects at the organization level, and then you can link to PRs and issues and individual repos within the organization.
Okay.
So I kind of look at, like, if we were to go down this path, the project would kind of be our overview or our high level view of what's happening in the different repos.
Okay.
This is something
Yeah, I'm open to suggestions. I mean, I think the main thing, Sean, is there's lots of different people involved outside of this meeting in these conversations on these topics. So I think you have to have an email discussion about if everyone's happy with the email or not, and what's the proposed alternative.
Okay, I think we can send an email at least on these and see if we can get a project set up to track it. I think this ultimately could also be, a good way to track a release, right? It sounds like we're already trying to catch all those missed things, but if you could, get your issue put into a release or a projected release, then it would be very easy to see the status of those and track and see how we're doing and when we're ready to release.
Yeah. Yeah, in previous, releases, what we say is, please tell us your bugs and features and make sure they're in Bugzilla, and we'll track it through a list of Bugzillas, which is not too different than what one of these project entries would look like, right? So that's what we tried to do in the past, but I think we've had some gaps in our attention from some of the maintainers that have let things drop on the floor, and that's the significant issue we're trying to address.
Yep.
So I think the concept of having a project with a list of work items makes a lot of sense for releases and for these more complex features.
Well, it's sometimes just like understanding what other people are doing, because the mailing list has a lot of noise, which is fine. People have to express their thoughts and debate things and everything. But if you're just trying to understand the POR or the direction of an important feature, you have to sift through a lot of irrelevant discussion to get there on the mailing list. So, like, a lot of times I'll pull up Thunderbird, sort by thread, and then just see, people debating and talking about random stuff, and then try to figure out, like, where is this going, like what's actually what's planned to happen, and then I just give up and go do something else.
Yeah.
So, like, if there was just a place where I could say, okay, what's happening with memory protections for the next EDK2 release, that would be really helpful for planning our own work to, number one, contribute to that or give thoughts on it, but number two, actually integrate it into a product. Right now, it's kind of just like it's like waiting for waves to roll in on the sea and see what comes in or something. Like, I don't know who's working on what or what they're doing or when it's going to show up. I think having like that direction defined somewhere would be nice. Like, people can talk and debate things, but at least once we reach conclusions, let's put them somewhere where we can have them on record about what
Okay.
we're planning to do.
All right. Yeah, because I think that it's still not going to solve the ownership and commit date kind of problem amongst the community, right? You can, yeah, I think your last point there is very important, which is if through the conversations an actual, design direction decision has been made, get that recorded with the pointers to the conversation that for which that was done. So at least you have the requirements or feature list from the mega feature are clarified. That makes a lot of sense. But as far as getting the community as a whole, unless there is a member that has a imminent need for the feature in one of their products, I don't know if you're going to see much change in leadership in getting features completed by a specific date that may help other companies get to their product commit dates.
Well, I'm just looking for what they're planning. Like, I assume everyone's doing work in EDK2 because they have a reason to, right? Like, most people are not doing it as a hobby. They're doing it because there's something driving what they're doing. And I would assume that most of those drivers have a schedule. So I would just like to know at a high level, like, what is that schedule that you're planning to do this on?
I think that would be an interesting conversation to see if those things actually exist as far as a date that's driving their work.
Yeah. I don't think anyone, that's the thing that's hard to tell right now, right? But even just having like a rough idea would be nice. Like, it doesn't have to be super granular. Like, do we want to try to get something done by the next EDK2 release or not? Like, what's the high level goal there?
And when
That would
I
be a
ask
good
those questions in the community meetings or in general, I get very little feedback. So that tells me that there is no, like, real clear master plan by anybody.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's case by case, depending on where people are. I think the other problem is it's like, for me, it's hard to plan these things because I don't know how much friction or resistance I'm going to run into once I start it. And so, like, sometimes you'll start a patch series and it'll be fairly straightforward and you'll get it completed. And other times, whether it's lack of reviews or whatever the issue is, it just takes longer.
Yep.
So it is kind of hard to plan what will actually happen, but I guess what people anticipate or plan to do. And maybe in some cases it's fine to say you don't know, right? Like, if you don't know, you don't know. We don't have to attach it to a milestone. But if you do know, it'd be nice to have that logged.
Right. And I think there are a few cases where there are hard dates, like the retirement of OpenSSL, the end of life of OpenSSL 111 in, I think, September. That's a hard date, right? We've all got to be working together on what the answer is for that. I think some of our Google Summer of Code projects had hard dates because of the students' delivery dates for some of those things. So we've had some items that do have critical dates associated with them, but they're not as common, I think, as the general work I see flowing through the mailing lists.
Yes. I guess I guess that's just my open, is like, maybe we can try to make more sense of it. Because I just see a bunch of ambiguous stuff flowing around as well.
Okay, I'll send out an email, see if at least for this memory one, which ultimately also is talking about a lot of stuff with CPU Dixie, which I know people on your team, Mike, have been involved in. If we can move that into some of the GitHub tools to manage and see if that helps.
Okay.
I think with that, I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have any opens? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Oh, I guess real quick, sorry. Next week is a holiday, right?
I believe it is.
And we also talked about last month trying to set up a European friendly time. Does anyone have any opposition to again doing that? I think we did it on the Tuesday after it. in the morning Pacific time. Is there any opposition to that?
That sounds like a good pattern for January and February. I think we need to figure out a consistent date maybe for the once a month with that time zone.
Yeah, maybe like the third week or something. We'll always say we'll move till Tuesday. Kevin, I couldn't quite hear if you had something to say.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right. I will move that. So, or I guess, Mike, can you help me move that to the 21st?
Yes. What was the, let's see, what was the last one time? Was it, what time Pacific did we do it last time?
I'll have to look.
See if I can find it here. Oh, it looks like it's 10 a.m.
Okay.
So
Sounds
yes,
good.
I can do it, Tuesday the 21st at 10 a.m.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you then.
Thanks, Mike.